to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. We have so many new listeners in the last several weeks, and I am so grateful, and I want to take a moment to say a special hello to you if you are new. I also want to let you know that if you are new, we have some pretty spectacular sponsors of our show. We have Cravat Inc. featuring CuratedCravat.com, who has been with me from the very first show. If you need to source, specify, and order furniture, rugs, lighting, bedding, and accessories from a reliable, trade-only source, head over to CuratedCravat.com and at checkout, use the code CKPodcast for 10% off your entire order. Next, we also have My Doma Studio. My Doma Studio is your one-stop shop for the very best interior design business software. Keep your projects systemized, organized, and professionally present and communicate with your clients and vendors all in one intuitive platform. To see what I'm talking about, go to mydomastudio.com/awelldesignedbusiness. So on the show today, I am so happy to introduce you to Chaney Widmer, the founder of Mix and Match Design Company. Chaney is a smart lady who saw a need and created it. You will hear Chaney explain she created Mix and Match Design to provide accessible, affordable interior design to everyone. After many years of writing a design blog and helping friends and family put together homes they loved, founder Chaney Widmer decided it was time to jump in head first and launch her own internet-based design business. With her e-design business, Chaney is committed to taking the intimidation out of interior design. Whether a client is starting from scratch on a brand new home, adding a few pieces to pull a room together, or just in need of another set of eyes to take their space from good to great. Chaney offers one-on-one decorating services through e-design and online interior design, and she shares her inspiration and decorating tips on the Mix and Match blog. Listen in as Chaney impresses me with her poise, her intelligence, and her carefully designed business model. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Today is a sponsored show, and this show is sponsored by Chaney Widmer, who is the founder of Mix and Match Design Company. Hi, Chaney. How are you?
Hi, Luann. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on the show. You were originally on the show, episode 260, and you and I met when I went down to Philadelphia to be at the Cravat, the new opening of the Cravat showroom at the Philadelphia Design Center, right? Or did we just meet through people you were recommended to me through that? Now all of a sudden I'm confused.
No, that's right. You
exactly.
had it right the first
time. Right.
So I had responded saying I was coming to the event, and you said great, and then we ended up connecting at the event and had a great conversation, and you said, hey, do you want to be on the podcast?
Exactly.
And I said, okay, sure.
Well, and because, a couple of things happened right off the bat. Of course, you impressed me. You impressed me at how well-spoken you were, how poised you were, how directed and focused you were about your business. But the other thing that impressed me which is what we discussed on the whole show, episode 260, is how your business is completely e-design. You don't do any client-facing in-the-house work. And I thought, I've never met anybody who specializes and only does that, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. So we had a whole conversation about how you actually do that in your business. And that was interesting. We picked it apart and everything. And at the end of that show, we just stuck in there that you were in the process of coming up with a course for your colleagues, for interior designers that are interested in how to effectively and profitably run an e-design business. And of course, you did come out with that course, but now we're here for you and I to talk about that course and for us to explain to our listeners, our colleagues out there, exactly what's in your course and how it works. And the thing is, Chaney, the first question I want to ask you about this course is that it's not just an effective course for a designer like yourself who is interested only in e-design. It's effective for a designer who wants this as part of their design firm as well. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah. So I think e-design is really flexible. It can be something that's part of your business. It can be your entire business, like I decided to do. But it can be also just a side hustle. If you've got something else going on, you want to dip your toe in the interior design world, but the most efficient way for you to do that, and maybe even the most enjoyable, is to go through e-design, then this course will help you get everything set up on the back end so you're ready to take on those clients.
And the thing is, it's just like, look, it's the mantra of the podcast that you have to have a system. You have to have a system when you run your business. And so what you're doing is you have been, for your career, specialized in this, and you have got it down to a science and a system that works. You're profitable doing it. And now you've just documented it and you are sharing it and teaching it to your colleagues. And I love the level of how in-depth this course is. You and I were discussing a little bit, and I understand that there's 4 major videos that come as part of the course, and for a total of 4.5 hours. And then you have a 20-page workbook that's part of the course. You have a resource guide in there, and you also, in the resource guide, you have things like the income calculator, a tutorial on Photoshop on how to create design boards, and all kinds of other little goodies. So you really have taken this aspect of design and systemized it. And so I love that. I mean,
yeah, it was one of those things where I wish I had that when I was starting, so I didn't have to fumble my way through it. But, I wanted to put those systems and those processes in place so that people would be able to not have to go through the trial and error process. People can figure this stuff out. It's just how much time do you want to spend figuring it out?
Well,
you can either take a course, or you can, spend a year doing it like I did.
Exactly. It's exactly right. And so the thing is that what I like too is that if a designer is thinking about adding it to their mix of services, that designer has even less time to get the learning curve up and over and running and systemized, because they are still there with their consultations, their full services and so forth like that. So this really does make it like, okay, let me just go from A to Z and get this done, right?
Right. And I will say that if you're already a designer and you're running a business, there may be some of the early stage stuff that may not be as applicable, just because, you already have a business in place. But the principles are there, and they're a good sort of foundation. Like, am I doing these things? Are these systems in place? And then how do I apply a lot of that kind of stuff to e-design? So it's something that you can sort of grow as an arm of your business through that model.
So this course is called How to Launch an E-Design Business. It is a recorded course. You purchase it and take it and go through it at your own pace, at your own time, in your own space. So it's not instructor led, which makes it much more convenient. There's pros and cons to both models, right?
Yeah.
Right. Instructor led models are valuable too, because then you can ask questions in real time. But for your course, the value is being able to do it. If you're a busy interior designer and you're sort of thinking about this on the side, but it isn't a driving, I've got to lock this down and get this done in 10 days, you can purchase it and go through it at your leisure. What I also like about it too is if I had a bigger firm with maybe 2 or 3 employees, I might think about purchasing it and then having one of my juniors go through it and,
Yes.
right? And then add
Yeah.
a little money and make them a little more profitable to my overall mix of revenue, right?
Yeah, and I had someone actually ask that explicit question during the first time I launched the course. They said, I have a few people who work under me, and I think it would be perfect because I want to expand into e-design, but I personally don't really want to do it. So she wanted to be able to offer the service as a part of her firm's offerings, but she said that she had 2 or 3 people who she would love to have take it so that they can be up to speed on what it takes to actually run an e-design arm of a business.
Yeah, I love that idea because, if you are carrying the salary of even just one other design assistant or junior designer, you need to look for ways to make sure that their hours are revenue producing hours. And this is a perfect way to do that. So I like that. It's awesome that she had that thought. So this course is launching June 4th, 2018. If you're listening in real time, you've got a couple of weeks before the course opens. However, you do offer it several times during the year. So if you're listening in the future, do not worry. Just contact Chaney and find out how and when you can get on the next launch. So let's take us a little step further. So the 4 videos, what sorts of things, what are the major arching topics of the 4 different videos that you have in the course, Chaney?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think it makes sense to go through them kind of one by one. So the first module is about choosing your business model. So there are lots of different pieces that go into that, but choosing your business model means how are you going to make money? How are you going to set up your services so that they are going to actually drive clients in? And how are you going to make sure that that client is going to be profitable long term? So that's sort of business model stuff. And then I also go into the differences between having your own business and working with a third-party matchmaking service. So if you guys have heard of, Laurel and Wolf or Havenly or one of those services where they match designers with clients, that's what I'm calling the third-party matchmaker service.
Okay.
So there are pros and cons to both. Starting your own business is tough and it can be hard to get clients initially, if you're really just starting out. But if you work through your business model and figure out, there might be a way to sort of bridge the gap until I can be totally on my own through these third-party matchmakers, something like that. There are ways to do it well.
Okay.
So that's sort of module 1. And then module 2 is about building out your own business. So taking the pieces that you learned in module 1 about your own business and being totally independent, and how do you actually take that idea and make it into a reality. So that's module 2. And then module 3 is about marketing, which is one of the biggest topics in your own business, right? You have to be able to market your services, get the word out, start forming relationships with people who can be good funnels for clients. And I talk about a lot of different strategies in there for you to try out and different success stories that I've had, so that you can take those and tailor them to what you're trying to look for and target your ideal clients.
Okay. I want to say something about the marketing component before you move on to number 4.
Sure.
What I know you a little bit, right? So we have an hour, half-hour conversation in person, and we have an hour conversation on the podcast, and then another, little bit today. I have to say that I'm already like, I want to read her marketing. I want to know her marketing module. Because Chaney, you have always from the beginning impressed me about the way you are focused and the way you think things through to begin with. But to know that somebody's business is strictly e-design business, I remember from the first conversation that you described that you attract a lot of your clients through your blog and your website. And so that is, that's a person that's got their marketing locked down. Do you know what I mean? That's not easy to do. And you seem to, I know nothing is easy, and I know that outside looking in, but you do seem to have it very well systemized. And I, appreciate that in you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's something that developed over time. It was definitely not an instant sort of success story, if you will.
Mm,
I blogged for 4.5 years before I started my business
mm,
and wasn't even, taking clients, wasn't totally focused on interior design, but it taught me so many skills and so many sort of nuances of how you market yourself, how you get the word out. And then so once I started offering services to help people design their homes, I could tailor all of those things to that particular marketing
mm,
idea. So it took time. And, there's a lot of thought that goes into that and a lot of, I like to call relational marketing.
mm.
So it's getting to know people. It's getting to know whether they are reaching people who might be potential clients for you. There's a lot that goes into that you don't really think about when all you want to do is design pretty spaces,
Right. Right. It's the truth. Well, and that's what so always impressed me from our very first meeting is that it's you just have that business head on every aspect of what you're doing. You're not just about the pretty spaces. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. And so what's number 4?
So module 4 is the nitty-gritty details of how to run an e-design process. So I call it the tools, process, and workflows module. So what it does is it starts at the very beginning before you even take on your client, and it walks through the onboarding process, the intake process, how you go into the design phase of things, the tools that you need to operate that particular part of the process, and then how you get the deliverables out at the end. So, what are you actually giving to this client?
Mm.
Are you giving them a room board with just, some pretty ideas and then they take it from there? Or are you giving them the exact shopping list they need? All those things kind of go into that tools, processes, and workflow module.
Mm. And in that, this is a question about doing e-design more than, but is it that difference between are you giving them an exact shopping list or are you giving them a design board that says, a white sofa and they can go get their own? Is there a best practice in e-design or is it really a preference or, what is your feeling on that just from a technical standpoint of e-design?
Yeah, so my general bent is that you should be giving the client the exact tool, shopping list, everything they possibly need, because what you're doing with e-design is cutting out that last piece of the process of a typical interior designer, which is the install, the getting everything set up, the like white glove service,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not providing that yourself, you need to enable your clients to be able to do that themselves.
Okay.
So my
And
thought is that you want to give them as much as you can and as specifically as you can.
okay. And so when you say that you're really in e-design, one of the ways that you're looking at it is you're doing everything a full service designer does, but except for the delivering and the white glove and the overseeing it. And that means that when you are doing regular full service design, you wouldn't say, and any old white sofa will do. You would select it, specify it,
Mm-hmm.
order it, and deliver it. So you're explaining to me the process,
Mm-hmm.
is the same in as far as the aspect of the design. You are actually designing it to a piece, to an accessory, to a rug. You're just not doing the last phase of the delivery. Okay, in your
Yeah.
way of doing it, in your belief, in your practice.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I think that e-design does give some flexibility there.
Right.
So you will have clients who are on the more do-it-yourself side of things. I've had some clients who were like, I just need to be told that the decisions I'm making are correct. And so for me, I'm putting together a design knowing that they don't necessarily need that exact, like, here's the sofa, you want this particular fabric, it's this size, put it
Right.
in this place. They're able to do some of that themselves. And I think
Right.
that's that hybrid of e-design, between the do-it-yourselfer and the full service design or person who would hire a full service
Hmm.
designer. So you have to kind of read your clients and figure out if you even want to work with clients on that DIY spectrum. For me, I would rather have clients that want me to just take over and they just give feedback, then I give them a shopping list at the end. They go boom, 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 buy it all, and they're all set.
Right. And so it's just like everything else we do. It's exactly this way until it's not,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm. And you
So,
can really only learn that through experience.
right.
There are going to be some bumps along the way, especially in any business, but with a service-based business, you're going to figure out who you like to work with, whether, there are ways to say, I'm going to steer away from that particular kind of client, or I'm going to target this one. And you can tailor your business, your marketing, your brand to want to serve those ideal clients.
Right. Okay. So the thing about it is that when I think about the level of what you in your business model for eDesign are providing, it's extremely detailed. You are really, like you said, your preference is that you are supplying every single link and item number and for everything that you're doing. So I would say that there has to be maybe even more so than a typical design firm, an affinity to the details, affinity to being very specific, right? Because when I think about it, of course, all designers should have an affinity to the details because the beauty is in the details, right? The exact moment that perfect piece comes in and just changes the space, right? But like if I am doing full service design and maybe I'm the type of designer that goes with my client to the tile store, for instance, we can organically develop a palette at the tile store. We can walk in and say, hey, we're looking for, slate blue tile, and we can walk out with whatever color we want because we had an inspiration that happened. So there's a detail there, but there is an absence of being tied to a detail. But when you're doing eDesign, you have to lock it down. It's
you
not like,
do.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So you have to want to do that, right? You have to, there's a different way of looking at design. I don't know it's not less creative. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's a little bit less free, I guess, is the point.
Yeah. And what you're doing is you're again enabling the client to be able to pull this whole thing off, because the reason they hired you is because they can't for some reason do it themselves. So there's a little bit of an art to balancing both of those things and being prescriptive enough where clients can say, okay, I feel ready to go, but also giving them a little bit of creative freedom too, because I find that especially with things like, art selection or very, very specific taste oriented things, sometimes you can't just browse a bunch of websites and pull, the art for them. Like they might take your ideas and say, okay, this is what I think looks good, but I'm going to go pick something that I really love or something.
Right.
Whereas with the, full service design, you might go to a showroom with somebody and say, let's go look at art today.
Right.
So there is some difference there in terms of the way that the process operates, especially at the end.
Yes. And I guess my only point in it is to think about what process gives you joy, like where are you happiest? Because eDesign may sound like, hey, I should do that, I can make extra money, but you have to think about, are you going to not only enjoy the process of being very, very specific, but how about not seeing the reveals, right? Not seeing the room put together. That's part of it that maybe for a lot of designers, that's the big juice, is seeing everybody happy. So you probably don't get to see, maybe I'm sure you ask your clients to send you photographs and stuff, but probably often people are already moved on and did the next or on to the next project, right?
Yeah, so the way that I mitigate that, because I love to see the final after, right? Too. It's hard to turn that down.
Like the reward.
Exactly. So the way that I mitigate that is that I work with a fair number of local clients. I just work with them through eDesign. So I may never step foot in their house until I go see it all done.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Kind of an interesting way of doing it, but it works really well. Clients are super proud of the product that they've put together using your tools. And they invite, I ask, a few months later, hey, how's it coming together? Can you send me some photos? And if it is one that's portfolio worthy, I'll be like, hey, would you mind if I came down and just, spend an hour shooting your house?
Okay.
And I haven't had anyone turn me down. So
yes, right. Exactly.
It's great. It's not every project. And I think any designer will tell you they don't get to shoot every project that they do. But I do a fair number of local clients. It's about 50%. So it's just, building that network of people who you can eventually go shoot their house because they're local.
And I remember that from our first conversation too, in the sense, what I remember is that you did tell us how you had a certain percentage of local people. And I remember thinking, you still just don't cross the line. You're not like, oh, you're 6 blocks from me, so I'll just come to your house. You still do the design. Like, that's hysterical. I love it.
Yeah, there is. I do have a very rare, I will let people ask me to come do an in-person consult, basically if they live in my neighborhood. Like, I don't go any farther than that.
5-block radius. If you're in that sweet spot, I'll come over.
Right. Now, I do live in the city, high density, but it is one of those funny things that, every once in a while I get someone who says, please come over for an in-person consult before we get started. Now, I'll do that if they're close.
And so that's interesting. How often do you how often do you say no? First of all, you say no every time somebody asks. I get that. But how often do you have to say no a second or third or fourth time before somebody doesn't stop? Like, in other words, if I called you up and I said, oh, you know what, I saw your e-design services, but hey, I'm in Philly, you're in Philly, I'd rather do a consultation. So I can see in that moment where I'm not all pressing you, you're just going to say, well, actually, that's not my system. I do e-design. Send me your pictures, blah, blah, blah. So probably half the people right there go, oh, okay. Like, I would be like, awesome. I don't even have to entertain you for an hour. I can do this at 2:00 in the morning when I can't sleep. Right. Mm-hmm. But how many times does somebody go, no, I really want you to. And then you find out that they don't live within a couple of blocks. They live 45 minutes or an hour away. What's that process like for you of really just saying, I know that it's possible for me to drive an hour. I'm not going to do it. Like, how do you go through that with somebody?
Yeah, that's great. So I usually find out pretty quickly how they found out about me, and that's a good trigger for location. Okay. So I have a few great networks very close by in Philly, and one of them is a parent listserv. And so it's very specific to our probably a mile radius, I would say. So if they're coming to me through the parents listserv, I know they're very, very local. And if they ask me, I'll say, hey, great, I'm in this neighborhood. You probably are too. If you are in that neighborhood, I'm happy to come out. But I have had one scenario where I didn't realize where they were, and I did end up driving 45 minutes because I'd already agreed to it, and I'm a woman of my word, so I will go out there. But it's actually pretty rare that someone will say and insist that I come out.
Okay, so most people are calling. They might ask, but if you say no, they're going to leave it at that. Well, and because you're putting it out there in all of your media and all of your marketing and all of your materials that you are an e-designer. So that's who you're attracting. You're basically attracting the client that understands that's the rule book, and we're going to play by those rules. I mean, that's what we say all the time, right? Put out there what you do so that people can find the type of designer that does what they want. So, okay.
And there's a rare occasion where someone literally only gets my name from somebody, and they haven't even looked at the website, which, I don't know why you would hire someone without vetting them first.
Exactly.
But hey, but I'll get the occasional, oh, you do I don't know if that's a good fit. And that's fine. And I say, great. I hope you find a wonderful designer to work with. It's not my system, and that's okay.
Right.
I don't have to take every single client who comes my way.
Right. Well, it's the ultimate example of niching. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you really, and the thing is, with every conversation that we've had on the podcast for 2.5 years, is that almost to a one, somebody who has so finely niched their company, whatever it is, you with e-design, Deborah Damari, from Damari Design is cruelty-free design. I remember Cheryl Janis is wellness design. So almost any person that's done that has had that little, like, I'm not so sure I should do this moment. Like, am I going to turn away too much business? But to a person that I've spoken to, it always results not only in more business, but the exact kind of business that you enjoy doing.
Right. And it's about having those processes in place where you can vet people before they even walk through the door. You shouldn't have to spend time emailing back and forth with someone, if they can just go to your website and say, oh, this person does e-design, or, oh, this person does full service design. Right. And then they can figure out for themselves without you having to spend your precious time, doing some of those things ahead of time.
Right. That's exactly right. And the thing is, too, it speaks to having your website really staking that claim of what it is that you want to do the most, because this way there's no mixed message. So if you're there and you had on your website, oh, e-design, and here's like 2 pages over here when I really have to, not that you would say those words, but, and this is how it works when I do in-person design, then you would have people calling you every third time for in-person, and you'd be like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do this. But it's like, there it is. Hello, take it away. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
That's all right. And I talk about that in the course too. Part of the marketing stuff and building out your business is building a website that's going to attract your ideal clients, right? So it's spending that time crafting the copy and the different kinds of packages that you're going to be offering, so that you can have people go to that website, say, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. They contact you, they book you, you start the onboarding process, and you're on your way.
So tell me a little bit about some of the experiences or some of the feedback that you have from, you did the first launch in January 2018 or February 2018, right? And so tell me either, I'm interested in one or both of these points of view, either feedback from experiences that designers who purchased and went through the course had, and or your own feedback and hindsight thoughts on the course that you created and how it went.
Yeah, both of those are great questions. So I asked for feedback afterwards, and I asked a bunch of questions, and I also asked people to tell me, how was this transformative for you, basically. And so I got some really thoughtful responses that were, it was one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm so glad this served you well, and
shoot,
it's sort of in a relief way. But I mean, if you're being honest with yourself, whenever you put something out that's new, you don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to be received, even if you do a ton of work on it, even if you invest a lot of time and energy. And so to get this feedback from people that was so positive was just really encouraging to me, and helped me know that I was on the right track with what I was offering.
Good for you. What kinds of things did you learn about that people experience, designers experience, having gone through the course?
Yeah, so I got some good feedback from people saying that it helped them get their systems and procedures lined up, and so that they felt confident that what they were going to be doing with clients from start to finish was going to be starting on the right foot. I heard a lot about that kind of stuff. And then also that it just helped people get up and running really quickly, which I think, again, we've talked a lot about the time issue, and everybody's time is very precious. So my goal was to provide, enough material where you were going to get something very valuable, but not be so much that you were overwhelmed and then you just didn't do anything at all. So,
there is that, right?
Right. So you have to pick your starting and ending point, right? Yes. So for me, I sort of picked the starting point from the conversations I'd been having with people who had contacted me kind of in the months prior to launching the course. So I was like, where's the average starting point for those people? And that's where I began the course. And then I ended it with here's how to get everything set up. Now you're ready to offer this to your potential clients or whatever. And now it's about doing. Yeah. So you're going to have all your systems in place. You're going to have your marketing strategy figured out. And sure, there are going to be adjustments along the way. But then at that point, you're ready to launch. The course is how to launch an e-design business. Right. It's not, necessarily how to grow an e-design business. That's sort of your next step. That may be some future course down the road. Who knows? But it's about, getting launched. And I feel like the feedback I got was that they felt ready to launch. So that was
home
really
run, grand slam, actually, right? Yes, yeah. Well, it's true. Look, I've put out over 330 podcasts, and every time it goes up live, I'm like, I hope this is a good one.
And it is, and you've got such a great system down. Not that we need to go off on a sort of rabbit hole tangent, but you've figured out your system and what works.
Yes, yeah.
So it's a matter of taking that and saying, okay, now that I have this system, let's make it run.
Right. Right. So that's so exciting. I'm so glad. I can feel it. I can visualize a designer going through this and finishing it and feeling like, okay, I got this. I just actually have to do it, but I know how to do it now. You know what I mean?
Right. And you're not just sort of saying, okay, out in the air, in the atmosphere, this is
Yes.
what I think works.
Right.
You're getting information from someone who's been there, done that,
Right.
and
Right.
then my goal is to not just leave you there alone afterwards. Like part of my thing is I want to create a community of e-designers. And so there's a private Facebook group for anyone who enrolls in the course. So you can sign up to be a part of that Facebook group, and then you have access to me whenever you want. So that's one of the benefits, is that I pop into that Facebook group, answer questions. People can ask questions. You can email me. Like at that point, I'm an open book,
Okay.
So I'm happy to be helpful, after you're a student in the course.
That's very nice. I like that. I wonder about when you are, 2 years from now and you've had 4,000 designers in the course, Chaney. And if you can manage being available to all of them, you're going to need to call me back with that program.
Okay. Let you know. I hope I'll get to that point. That sounds great.
Oh, you're going to get there. You're totally going to get there. You're too well put together to not get there. I'm calling it right now. Like 2 years from now, I know you, not even 2 years from now, but it's just, I talk to a lot of people, Chaney, that. And thankfully, I have amazing conversations with every single one of them because I'm just infinitely curious about everybody's life, their system, whatever it is. But there are always people that I can hear in the way you describe and you talk and you have yourself set up, that there's just a level of superstar power happening. And you have that, Chaney. You definitely do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you definitely do. So, okay. So that was the great feedback from the participants that went through it. Did you have any, hindsight moment? This was really awesome. This change and pivot or anything like that? Anything that you've, like with this next launch that you added or you reinvented, or was it like, hey, I hit it out of the park the first time. This is cool.
Yeah. So I think that generally I felt really good from the feedback that I got, that I kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of the content. So that was good. One thing I did add afterwards was something that I'm actually offering as a free download to everybody. You get it in the course, but just as a yay, thank you. I'm excited that you're excited about this. It's a free download. It's the startup checklist for an e-design business. And so it's basically just a big overview of the major things you're going to want to check off or make sure you know how to check off before you start. And so having that sort of overarching plan, I would say, is a nice sort of overview. It's not the nuts and bolts of how to do everything, but it's here are the things that I wish I had sort of had laid out before I started my business, and that I ended up kind of checking off haphazardly along the way. But if you have it ahead of time and you can go through and say, okay, have I done that? Do I have the software I need? Do I have the equipment? Do I have a marketing plan in place? Those kinds of things. Then this is laid out in a one-page, very simple document, but it's something that you guys can download for free over on this landing page that I have set up.
Okay, you want to give us the address for that, the web address for that?
Yeah, sure. So it's bit.ly/eDesignBizChecklist. So bit.ly/eDesignBizChecklist.
Right, and biz, B-I-Z.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So what I like about this is not an e-design business checklist for running a specific client project. This is the checklist for having an e-design business or portion of your business. Like you said, you talk about, do you have these tools? Do you have this marketing? So they're two very different lists. And this one is you're teaching people how to duplicate what you've done as a business person.
Right. So this is the back end stuff. This
Right.
is the less pretty. It's not it's not the pretty, here's your room. Yay, I created this. This is the nuts and bolts of the behind the scenes stuff that might not be quite as pretty to look at, but entirely necessary if you actually want to create a sustainable, long-term, successful business.
Right. And it's the part that, 99% of us need, because if you're a designer listening, you probably know how to make the pretty room, right? It's like, how do I translate this into a business system so that I can make money making the pretty room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
This is the point.
Yep. And so, those things are the important, but things that you don't really want to do sometimes. Like, I get that.
Right.
Some people have that business mind and they think this is really fun.
Right.
But for a lot of people, it almost feels like pulling teeth to do the back end business stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, here's the necessary evil. See if you have these things in place. If not, let's figure out how to do those things. And for some people, that will point them in the direction of taking a course like the one I've put together.
Mm-hmm.
And some people may feel like that's all they need. And that's fine with me,
Right.
I'm not trying to convince you through that checklist to buy it, but it's one of those things where it's going to be helpful in determining kind of where you are in your business and then which direction you need to go to really make it successful.
Mm-hmm. What I love is I am quite naturally a researcher. So whenever I'm going to do something, I'm going to research it insanely. So I've said on the podcast before, I decided in July of 2015 I wanted to have a podcast, and it was until October that I had the business plan written and presented it to my husband for approval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so the thing is, in that whole time, I was gathering information. I probably listened to, I would say, 300 to 400 hours of other podcasts on how to make a podcast. You know what I'm saying? And so this reminds me of that. It's like, look, it's not rocket science. If you're an educated, talented interior designer, and I don't mean educated by a degree, I mean just a person with a brain in their head. Okay.
Yeah.
So, right. You're a talented person with a brain in your head. You can do e-design, or you can shorten the learning curve and listen and learn from somebody who's done it before. But my point where I'm going is, but that's not going to ensure the success. You now have to execute on it. I love when I get the path. I love when somebody tells me the rules in the game. But of course, I'm such a questioner and such a researcher that I have to have 20 people tell it to me. I'll be like, oh. So I've looked for information on how to do a podcast or how to do e-design, from 20 places, and 19 of them agree on this. All right, I guess I can agree on it now too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I have to prove it to myself. It's a little tedious to be in my brain, by the way. But, when I get there, I'm there. But the thing about it is that, you have laid it out so nicely, all of the lessons and all of the successes that you've experienced with this and your roadmap to getting there. And do the course, but then you have to get up every morning and execute. This is not a foolproof, 100%. What it is I know it to be true. If you follow what you have done, I guarantee I can even I just know you enough to know that I know it works. Truly. I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it. But you have to get up and do it. It's what I always say. You have to decide, right? You have to decide.
You do.
You
exactly.
You can't leave it there on the bookshelf.
Right. This is not an I will launch your business for you course.
Exactly.
If that was the case, I'd charge you a whole lot more money.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's true. And I think that it's a distinction to be made, because on one hand, it's exciting when you hear about somebody like yourself that has had a very successful e-design company, and you have taken the time to map out exactly every step and every process and every tool that's contributed to the success of that. And you put it in a format that we can easily digest and understand. But it's no different than Weight Watchers, right? Weight Watchers has a complete program. You can pay your money every week and get weighed and hear about it, but if you don't actually do it, you're not going to reach your ideal weight. So I just like to say that, because I think this is sort of I said this to you the first time I met you on the show when we first conversation. It was like, I want to do this course, and I'm not even a designer.
Yeah, and I love this stuff. When someone teaches you something that's very practical and actionable, you get excited about it. And it's something that you want to move forward with, as long as the particular business ends up being a good fit for you, which we've talked about.
Right.
Is e-design a good fit for you as a person and in your lifestyle, what your business goals are, those kinds of things, then this course is going to help you get there.
Right, right, right. And I also want to just go back to what we said in the beginning when you mentioned that you had a designer that approached you and said, if she purchases it, can her team take the course, right? As opposed to having it I understood that was what I inferred what you meant. She wanted to know, okay, it's my company, my firm, I'm going to purchase it, but I'm going to have these people take the course. That's okay. That's what she was checking, right?
That's fine.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the thing is, it's funny because I want to just say that you almost could hear possibly some of our colleagues listening that are like, I don't know that I would spend money on something like this and then turn around and have a junior or whatever your designation for their name in your firm is, because then they could go and leave me and go and start their own e-design company. But the thing about it is every single person you bring into your firm, you're teaching them the things that you know about design and about running a business.
That's right.
Right? And so like, I just want to take that little fear away, because I don't think you should not think of it that, in my opinion, you should not think about that. When you hire somebody, you should be, in my opinion, in order to have them be the best they can be to serve your business, you need to teach them the very best of everything that you know to do. And if that means that you don't know e-design, but you want an e-design department and you buy a course and some Chaney teaches it to them, what's the difference, right?
Yeah. And I think that if you want to serve your clients well, which is really what this comes down to, you want the best people around you who are going to be able to keep that standard up. And so again, you're going to be teaching them as much as you possibly can to reach that excellent skill set of, all the practical stuff, but also client service and, the business end of things, so that everything runs smoothly. And it's always a risk that they're going to say, okay, now I feel ready to go do my own thing.
Right. I mean, and how many do that? I mean, that is almost the cycle of the design world. I mean, how many times have we said on the show, some of the most successful interior designers, when I've said to them, what's one of the number 1, 2, or 3 things that you think has contributed to your success? And how many times has the answer been, I've worked for a very successful designer. I watched and learned how to run a good business. So, look, you're going to hire somebody who's going to work with you for 2 or 3 years and move on and start their own. Sometimes you're going to get lucky and that person is just so thrilled to be part of your team. It comes down to treating them well. And in my opinion, treating them well is part of this, is teaching them, like you said, every skill set they need to be excellent, whether it's in your company or when they move on, whatever, you can't worry about that. So I just think that
people don't want to, people don't want to launch their own businesses.
Right.
Some people don't want that headache either. So it might be a risk, but then you also may have people who work for you for 20 years.
Right.
You never know.
Right. And I think for me, it's just like, I almost could see the pushback more when you describe paying for a course for a junior to take. It's like, you know what I mean? Whereas it's no different than if you knew it yourself inside and out and you taught your junior, is my point, is all I'm making.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I think it's great. I just think it's awesome because, and the other thing about it is, if you are having a junior or other people on your team that are taking on part of the role or the role of the e-design, why not know that they're doing it the most efficient way that they can through a process, as opposed to struggling through it and one day doing it this way and one day doing it that way? You know what I'm saying?
Right. And it's a good use of your time to have somebody else kind of figure that process out, so you don't have to do that trial and error with them along the way.
Exactly. I love it. It's awesome. It's terrific. So in this course, you have this resource guide, you have a workbook, and the workbook takes them through scenario. What does the workbook take us through? Scenarios, how to actually execute from a technical standpoint, getting design boards to a client. What is it? What are we learning in the workbook?
Yeah, so the workbook mirrors the modules that I teach with the videos.
Okay.
So it basically takes anything that I think is an application and puts it into writing form so that you can work through it on your own.
Okay.
So if I mention, in the tools, processes, and workflows module that you need to figure out which software you want to use for this particular step in the process, there's going to be a section in the workbook that mirrors that and says, hey, here's the thing that we talked about in the module. What are you going to use? I gave you 50 different tools, and here's all the softwares that I think are great that are out there right now. Which ones are you going to use? And it gives you a chance to say, okay, I'm going to, go try design files as, a client-facing software service. I'm going to go try Photoshop to make my design boards. And once you kind of figure out what works for you and your systems, you can put that all in the workbook and design your workflow so that when you do start working with clients, you'll have it all figured out. It'll be mapped out and kind of ready to go.
Okay, so I like that too, that I just heard in there, is that you're not saying there's only one way, this one tool, this one platform, this. You are giving them exposure to various ones, because somebody might be looking and going through the process and already using one or two of these platforms. And if you didn't mention that this could be capable of happening across multiple platforms, they could stop right there and say, I'm not learning another software. Like, I'm not doing
right.
it.
Yeah.
But you're like,
so
I already know how to do that one, right?
Yeah. And so for that workflow section in particular, what I do is I outline all the tools that I've tried, basically, which has been a lot. And so I outline what those do, what they can do, what they can't do. And then I actually put them into workflows. And so I give you some example workflows using some different softwares and different, particular ways of doing things. So you have a couple of different methods to try out, and then you can tweak them based on either softwares you're currently using, or if there are ones that you want to try out and kind of input into those different parts of the process. So you can tailor it to the way your brain works, because I recognize that we do not all work the same.
Right.
And something might work really well for one person, and it might drive another person absolutely crazy. Exactly. So it's taking the time to actually try some of those things, and I offer some different ways to do that. So a lot of software has free trials, or there are different ones that you can kind of give it a shot, if you will, and try to learn it, even if there is a little bit of a steep learning curve. And if at the end of the day you're like, no, I don't think that's going to be working for me, that's okay. And so the other thing that I recognize is that people are at different stages in their business, and they might be able to invest more or less money in certain things. And I know when you're starting a business, like, money's tight, then that's one thing that you have to kind of, it's chicken or the egg. Do you spend money to make money? Do you make money to spend money? But there are softwares that you can use to carry out an e-design business that come with your computer. There's certain things like Microsoft PowerPoint that you could use to make design boards until you feel like you're ready to invest in Photoshop or something like that. Okay. So I offer some different ways to kind of tailor that to where you are in business.
I like that. And it's funny because I was thinking one of the next questions that I wanted to ask you were you finding that the people that joined the first launch of this program, How to Launch an E-Design Business, did you find them coming from a particular segment of the design field? In other words, were they mostly younger, newer designers? Were they mid-career that were thinking, hey, let me get on this bandwagon of e-design? Was there a particular group that emerged more over another?
Yeah, there was. So I would say that the vast majority of people were either very early stage, like they had maybe had a couple of casual clients, almost as like test clients, and they recognized that they wanted to move forward in business, but didn't really know how to do it or do it well. And then there were people who felt like they had started their business, but for some reason felt like they hit a wall. And they either weren't getting clients, or they felt like their processes weren't working very well, or that they didn't know how to put together the package that would serve their clients well. There were sort of like those early stages, like they might have had a website up, but their website didn't really tell anybody anything, or they didn't really know what they were offering yet. And so that was sort of the vast majority of people fell into those categories. And then there were some designers who, had well-established businesses who wanted to add an e-design arm. And then there were also an interesting group of people who weren't even really sure what they wanted to do, but thought e-design was probably the direction they wanted to go. So they were taking the course to really see if that was true.
Interesting, interesting. And I like that you have outlined ways for what you said a moment ago. If you have to do it through your PowerPoint, which is free on your computer, then don't worry about it. You can do that, and you teach them how to do that, so that at every stage that they're at, I think it's well thought out, and I can see the attraction of the different stages. Like you said, somebody just coming to the career, whether coming out of college or just coming to a career change and thinking, hey, I want to just do e-design. This is my shtick. But others where they've been designing and they're not necessarily profitable, whether they actually were to pursue being strictly e-design or not, I would think that there's benefit in just understanding these processes and systems that you've taken the time to outline.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of this stuff is pretty applicable to a lot of businesses, which should be true, right?
Right.
You'd think that if you're starting a business, then there are certain things you just have to do.
Yeah.
But it's tailored to e-design, but it also does set you up for, oh, there might be other parts of my business that need shoring up. And I can apply some of these principles to my traditional interior design service that's more full service.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I love it. I think I was so impressed with you. I said it 3 times so far today, but I was so impressed with you the first time I met you, and you continue to impress me each time we have a conversation. You're a smart lady, Chaney.
Well, thank you, Luann. I appreciate that. It's been so fun to chat with you, and getting to pick my brain about this.
Yes. So tell them, so we have the free startup checklist that's at the one site, which is bit.ly/edesign. Nope, that's not. It's at bit.ly/edesign biz checklist, right?
Yep. So bit.ly/edesign biz checklist.
And then we also, if somebody's like, hey, I'm going straight to go, I'm collecting my $200, I want the course. The course is at a different website. Tell us that website.
Right. So you can find the course through the startup checklist. There is a link to it there. But if you want to go straight to the landing page for the course, which is going to tell you everything from start to finish about what it offers, importantly, what it doesn't offer, and sort of a few testimonials from people, and you can get all of the details to really make sure it's a good fit for you. And that is at bit.ly/edesign course.
Okay.
So bit.ly/edesign course.
And do we want to say how much the course costs, just so everybody who's sitting there thinking and wondering what it is?
Yeah, sure. So you can do either a one-time payment of $495, or I do have a payment plan option as well, and that's 3 consecutive monthly payments of $175.
Okay. And of course, that is the valid price for May of 2018 for the June 4th launch. That May, if you're listening to it a year from now, who knows what it's going to cost.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good distinction. Yeah. So right now, that's what it is. Yep. And so it will be opening on June 4th, 2018. And the enrollment period will be open for 2 weeks. So if you want to get on the email list to make sure you don't miss the launch, or that you want to be reminded, that's on the course landing page as well. So it's very obvious. You can't miss it, I promise.
Right.
And if you get on that email list, then you'll be all set.
Right. I love it. And just to be clear, we said it in the beginning, but the course is open for launch for these 2 weeks, June 4th for 2 weeks, but you can take the course at any point in time. So if you're like, oh my goodness, summer is the worst time, I have 5 kids that are home all summer, you can purchase the course during the 2 weeks and then begin the course in September when all your kids go back to school. So it's
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Just so they don't think I've got to sit there and do this at a certain time. It is at your own pace.
That's right. And I've had people who purchased it, and you can kind of see on my end, when they've taken certain modules and stuff. And some people just started it this week and they bought it in February.
Okay.
So it really is up to you. And that's not saying anything bad about you. That's just saying there's a limited enrollment period.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
yeah.
I know. Kay Whitaker did a course last year in November or December on a boot camp for creating email funnels and sequences. And, we got the course, and I think we started it 2 weeks ago. So that's 8 months, 6 months later. It's I'm
yeah,
like, I want it. I just don't have time for it yet, but I want it.
Right, exactly.
So that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chaney. I really do appreciate your taking the time to come on the show and for you sponsoring the show so that your colleagues can hear about this exciting new How to Launch an E-Design Business course. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.